The Barrington estate gleamed under the afternoon sun, its marble halls echoing with silence save for the soft cooing of baby Olivia. At 6 months old, she was the jewel of the household, adored by her father, guarded fiercely by her mother, and cared for daily by the quiet presence of Yanelle Porter, the housekeeper. Yanelle stood by the nursery window, her dark hands cradling the infant against her chest. She swayed gently, humming a lullaby from her childhood. Olivia, restless only moments ago, calmed almost instantly. Her tiny fingers curled into Yanelle's blouse, her wide eyes fluttering shut. It was a tender scene, one of pure care, of instinctive connection. And then the door slammed open. Evelyn Barrington, dressed in designer silk and diamonds, strode in. Her eyes landed on Yanelle holding Olivia, and fury erupted across her face. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. Yanelle froze. "Mrs. Barrington," she wouldn't stop crying. "I was only trying to." The words were cut short by the sharp crack of Evelyn's hand across her cheek. The sound echoed off the nursery walls. Olivia startled, her cry piercing the room. Yanelle staggered back, clutching the child tighter for fear she might fall. Her own eyes filled with shock and pain. "You dare put your hands on my baby?" Evelyn's voice shook with rage. "You filthy woman. Stay away from her." Tears blurred Yanelle's vision. I meant no harm. She needed comfort. Please, I only." Silence. Evelyn spat. "You are nothing but a servant. Know your place." The nursery door creaked again, this time with a different weight. Daniel Barrington, the billionaire patriarch, stood at the threshold. His tall frame filled the doorway, his expression unreadable. He had seen everything. For a long moment, silence smothered the room. Evelyn's chest heaved, her hands still trembling from the blow. Yanelle stood rigid, Olivia wailing in her arms. Daniel's gaze shifted between them, his wife's fury, his daughter's cries, the housekeeper's tear-streaked face. Finally, his voice cut through the tension, calm but razor-sharp. "Evelyn, what have you done?" His wife faltered. "Daniel, she was touching the baby. I told her never to." Daniel stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "And that gave you the right to strike her?" Evelyn blinked, caught off guard. She overstepped her bounds. "She's nothing but." "Enough." His tone left no room for argument. He reached out, gently lifting Olivia from Yanelle's trembling arms. The baby clung to him, but her eyes still sought Yanelle, reaching out toward her even as she cried. Daniel saw it. He noticed the way his daughter calmed only when Yanelle was near, the way she leaned toward her as though drawn by something deeper than mere routine. And in that instant, a seed of doubt took root. Something was not as it seemed. He turned back to his wife, his voice low and deliberate. "If you think the truth will stay buried, Evelyn, you're mistaken. Because I will find it. And when I do, everyone will know." Evelyn's face paled. Yanelle's breath caught. Olivia whimpered softly, still reaching toward the woman who had soothed her. And Daniel Barrington knew. This was the moment everything began to unravel. Long before the slap echoed through the Barrington nursery, the paths of these three women, Evelyn, Yanelle, and little Olivia, were already intertwined by invisible threads of pain, fear, and longing. Evelyn Barrington had grown up in a world of perfection. Daughter of a socialite mother and a banking magnate, she had been trained from birth to carry herself with poise, to maintain appearances, to never let a crack show. Marriage to Daniel Barrington, the rising star of the tech world, seemed to crown her destiny. Their mansion, their fortune, and their daughter Olivia were supposed to be proof of her flawless life. But behind closed doors, Evelyn's grip on control was fragile. She had nearly died during childbirth, and the trauma lingered. Olivia's cries at night pierced deeper than any diamond could distract. Evelyn lived in constant fear that she would fail as a mother, that the world would see weakness in her polished surface, that Daniel's adoration might slip if she faltered. And fear, in Evelyn's world, often disguised itself as anger. Yanelle Porter had lived a life in stark contrast. Born in a small southern town, she had worked her way through college, earning a degree in child psychology. She had once been celebrated as one of the youngest counselors at a family crisis center, known for her empathy and the calm way she soothed troubled children. Her gift was undeniable. Children trusted her. They leaned into her voice, into her presence, as though she carried a piece of safety within her. But tragedy struck 3 years before the Barringtons hired her. Yanelle had been working with a young boy in foster care who had suffered severe neglect. Despite her efforts, despite sleepless nights and endless advocacy, the system failed him. The boy died in an accident that Yanelle could not prevent. The loss broke her. She resigned from her post, her credentials gathering dust in a drawer. Depression swallowed her, and bills piled up. By the time she clawed her way back to the surface, she had nothing left. No practice, no reputation, no home. The only work she could find was domestic labor. So she took the job at the Barrington mansion, desperate to survive, determined to stay invisible. She had promised herself she would never again become attached to a child. But promises of the heart rarely hold. From the moment Olivia was placed in her arms, wailing inconsolably, Yanelle's instincts took over. The lullabies, the steady rocking, the gentle hum of reassurance, all the tools she thought she had locked away flowed back as naturally as breathing. And Olivia responded. While Evelyn's arms often stiffened, while Daniel's business kept him late, it was Yanelle who paced the halls at midnight, whispering songs, soothing the baby until sleep finally came. She never meant to overstep. She never intended to be seen. But the bond between her and Olivia grew undeniable enough that when Evelyn saw it, it sparked the deepest fear of all. That her child loved another woman more than her. As Daniel pieced together fragments of this story, his wife's brutal perfection, his housekeeper's quiet sorrow, he began to sense the depth of what lay beneath the slap he had witnessed. This was not just about a boundary crossed. This was about two women, both scarred by their pasts, colliding over the fragile life of a child who needed them both. And Daniel, the man who had built empires out of logic and code, knew he was standing on the brink of something far more complicated than any boardroom war. The truth would demand to be revealed. And once it was, nothing in the Barrington household would ever be the same. The nursery had fallen silent after Daniel's sharp rebuke, but the storm brewing in the Barrington household was only beginning. That night, Evelyn paced their grand bedroom, her silk robe swishing with every step. "Daniel, I cannot believe you stood there and questioned me." In front of her. Daniel loosened his tie, his jaw tight. "I didn't question you. I questioned your actions. You struck her, Evelyn, in our home, while she was holding our daughter." "She had no right to touch Olivia," Evelyn snapped, her voice shrill. "She's the help. Nothing more." Daniel's eyes darkened. "The help has been the only one who can calm our daughter. Did you not see how Olivia reached for her even in my arms? That is not nothing, Evelyn. That is trust." Evelyn turned away, her hands trembling. "You don't understand. It feels like she's replacing me." Daniel's voice softened but remained firm. "No one can replace you as a mother. But your fear cannot excuse cruelty. Something is not adding up here, Evelyn, and I intend to find out what it is." The following morning, Daniel asked for access to the security footage from the nursery. Hours of recordings revealed what Evelyn had chosen not to see. Night after night, when Olivia's cries pierced the air, it was Yanelle who appeared. She moved with patience, her hand steady, her voice low and soothing. Daniel watched as Olivia clung to her blouse, as the baby's sobs quieted in her arms. He saw Yanelle pacing the floor, whispering songs, even falling asleep upright in the rocking chair with Olivia curled against her chest. The images stirred something deep in him, gratitude, guilt, and a gnawing suspicion that the bond between Yanelle and Olivia wasn't simple chance. That evening, Daniel confronted Yanelle in the kitchen. She was drying bottles, her movements slow, as if replaying the slap over and over in her mind. "Yanelle," he began, his tone calm but deliberate, "I've seen the footage. I know how much you've been caring for Olivia." She froze, her shoulders stiff. "I'm sorry, sir. I never meant to step beyond my duties. She just cries less when I hold her. I didn't want to cause trouble." Daniel studied her face, the weariness, the quiet sorrow etched into every line. "This isn't just about calming her, is it? You have experience with children. More than you've told us." Her eyes flickered with panic. She shook her head, lips pressed tight. Daniel pressed gently. "Please. I'm not accusing you. I only want the truth. Olivia trusts you more than anyone, and I need to understand why." For a moment, Yanelle looked as if she might break, but then she swallowed hard and whispered, "It's not my place." Meanwhile, Evelyn grew more paranoid. At brunch with her friends, whispers followed her. "Did you hear? The Barrington maid is practically raising the baby. Imagine letting someone like that hold your child. They say Daniel sides with her. By the time Evelyn returned home, her fury had reached a fever pitch. She stormed into the study where Daniel was reviewing contracts. "I won't have it," she declared. "She goes. Tonight." Daniel looked up slowly, his eyes cold. "If anyone leaves this house tonight, it won't be her." Evelyn staggered back, stunned. "You'd choose her over me." "I am choosing the truth over lies," Daniel replied. "And the truth is that Olivia needs her. Perhaps even more than she needs you right now." The words struck like daggers. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, but pride stiffened her spine. "You're blind, Daniel. She's manipulating you. Manipulating our daughter. And if you don't open your eyes, she'll destroy everything we've built." Daniel stood, his voice low and unwavering. "The only thing destroying this family, Evelyn, is the hate you can't let go of. And I will not let Olivia grow up learning that hate." The fracture lines were deepening. Evelyn's paranoia. Yanelle's silence. Daniel's determination. The Barrington mansion, once a monument of luxury and order, had become a battlefield of fear, truth, and secrets clawing their way to the surface. And Daniel knew, whatever the cost, he was closer than ever to exposing what Evelyn had buried in the shadows. The tension in the Barrington home clung like fog. Evelyn grew more brittle with each passing day, lashing out at staff, seething with suspicion. Yanelle moved quietly, her eyes always lowered, as though bracing for another strike. But Daniel could not let the unease rest. He needed the truth. Late one evening, Daniel asked Yanelle to join him in the conservatory. The glass walls glowed with moonlight, the air thick with the scent of jasmine. She hesitated at the doorway, wringing her hands. "Sit," Daniel said gently. She obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair like a guest who might be asked to leave at any moment. Daniel leaned forward, his tone calm but steady. "I know you've been hiding something. You soothe Olivia like no one else can. You don't do that by accident. Who are you, really?" Her breath caught. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the ticking of the clock. Then her voice, fragile but resolute. "I was a child psychologist." Daniel blinked, startled. "I had a practice downtown," she continued, her eyes fixed on her folded hands. "I worked with children who had experienced trauma, neglect, little ones who screamed through the night and mothers who didn't know how to hold them anymore. I helped them learn to trust again. It was my calling. My life." Her voice cracked. "Until it wasn't." She told him about Caleb, a foster child she had counseled. He was 8 years old, withdrawn, hiding bruises he never spoke of. Yanelle poured everything into him: therapy, advocacy, endless hours of patience. But the system was merciless. One night, Caleb ran from his foster home. The police found him the next morning. Cold. Lifeless. Yanelle's face crumpled as the words spilled out. "I told myself I failed him. I should have done more. The weight of it crushed me. I couldn't go back to the clinic. Couldn't face another child when I couldn't even save him." Tears glistened on her cheeks. "I sold my things, drifted, took whatever work I could find. When I applied here, I swore I would never get close to a child again. But then," her eyes finally lifted, filled with something raw and vulnerable. "Then Olivia cried, and my body just remembered what to do." Daniel sat back, his chest heavy. He had expected a lie, perhaps a minor crime or secret agenda. But this was something entirely different. A woman who had once saved children's lives, shattered by a tragedy she could not control. "She calms because she senses you," he murmured, almost to himself. "Because you carry the kind of love that doesn't quit." Yanelle shook her head fiercely. "No, please don't say that. I don't deserve credit. I failed once, and I can't fail again. I keep thinking I should leave before I break her heart, or yours." Daniel leaned forward, his voice firm. "You didn't fail, Yanelle. The system failed. You gave that boy what no one else did: kindness. That matters. And Olivia," his voice softened as he spoke his daughter's name, "Olivia doesn't need perfection. She needs love. And you've given it when no one else could." Her eyes widened, tears slipping freely now. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it. What neither of them realized was that Evelyn, restless and suspicious, had crept down the hallway. She paused just outside the conservatory, her hand clutching the doorframe as she listened. Her husband's voice. The maid's confession. The words love and trust echoing in the night. Jealousy curdled in her stomach. Fear sharpened into something darker. She turned away, her heels clicking against the marble as she fled back upstairs. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He replayed Yanelle's confession, the pain etched into her face. For years he had surrounded himself with boardroom battles and courtroom strategies, but here was a war of the heart, unfolding under his own roof. And he knew he was closer to the truth. Closer to the reason Olivia reached for Yanelle more than anyone. Closer to the secret Evelyn was terrified of him uncovering. The next morning, tension sat thick in the Barrington mansion. Evelyn avoided Daniel's eyes at breakfast, her hands trembling slightly as she buttered her toast. Daniel watched her carefully, his mind still replaying Yanelle's late-night confession and the way Evelyn had flinched the night before when he mentioned the word truth. Finally, he broke the silence. "Evelyn, we need to talk." Her knife clattered against the plate. "About what?" "About last night. About why you've treated Yanelle the way you have. About what you're hiding." Color drained from her face. She forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. "Hiding? Really, Daniel, you're being absurd. She's a maid, nothing more. And you've let her manipulate you with her sob story." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Manipulate me?" "I watched the footage, Evelyn. Olivia calms in her arms every night. She reaches for her instinctively, even over you. That doesn't happen by chance. There's something you're not telling me." Her hands balled into fists. "So what if the baby prefers her? Children are fickle. They grab onto whoever spoils them most." Daniel slammed his palm against the table, startling her. "Enough. This isn't jealousy, Evelyn, it's fear. I see it in your eyes. You know there's more to this. And I won't let you tear Yanelle down to protect yourself." The argument spilled into the nursery, where Olivia stirred restlessly in her crib. Evelyn followed, her voice shrill. "You don't understand, Daniel. If the world finds out—" She stopped abruptly, her face paling. Daniel seized on the slip. "Finds out what?" Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth, her body shaking. "Nothing. I said nothing." But Daniel's instinct screamed otherwise. He stepped closer, his voice low, deliberate. "Evelyn, you know I'll find the truth, whether you speak it or not. So tell me, what are you so desperate to hide?" Tears welled in her eyes, but her pride forced her chin high. "You think you're so righteous, defending that woman. But you don't know what it's like to feel replaced in your own home, to watch your child look at someone else as if she were more of a mother than you." Daniel's voice softened, though his words cut deep. "No one can replace you, Evelyn. Unless you keep trying to protect lies instead of your daughter. Then you'll lose her yourself." The nursery fell silent, Olivia's soft whimpers filling the air. Evelyn turned away, shoulders trembling, caught between confession and defiance. Later that afternoon, Daniel called Yanelle into the study. Evelyn sat stiffly in the corner, her lips pressed thin. "I need both of you here," Daniel began, "because this house cannot survive on half-truths any longer." Yanelle's eyes widened, nervous, but she nodded. Evelyn refused to meet her gaze. Daniel continued. "Yanelle has told me her past. She was a child psychologist, not just a housekeeper. That explains why Olivia responds to her. But it doesn't explain why you, Evelyn, reacted with such violence. Unless," his eyes locked on his wife, "you knew all along there was more to this connection." Evelyn's breath hitched. "Daniel, please, stop." "No," his voice was sharp. "If you won't speak, I will uncover it myself. And when I do, it will break this family apart. If you love Olivia, even a fraction of what you claim, you'll stop hiding." For the first time, Evelyn broke. Her face crumpled, tears spilling as she whispered, "You don't understand. If you knew, you'd hate me." Daniel's chest tightened. "I could never hate you. But lies will destroy us faster than truth ever could." Yanelle sat frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Olivia's cries echoed faintly down the hall, as if urging the truth to finally surface. Evelyn buried her face in her hands, her voice trembling. "The baby. Olivia, she isn't only mine." The words hung heavy in the room. Daniel's pulse quickened, his mind racing. "What do you mean?" he demanded. Evelyn looked up at him, broken and terrified. "The truth about her, the truth I've hidden since the day she was born." The study fell into stunned silence. Daniel's breath came shallow, his heart pounding with the certainty that the secret Evelyn had buried was bigger than anything he had imagined. And when it came out, it would change everything. The silence in the study pressed down like a weight. Evelyn's confession hung in the air, fragile and unfinished. Daniel leaned forward, his voice taut. "What do you mean, Evelyn? Not only yours." Her hands twisted in her lap. She could barely meet his eyes. "When we were trying for a child, I couldn't conceive. Every doctor told me my chances were slim to none. I was terrified you would leave me, Daniel. Terrified I would never give you the family you dreamed of." Daniel's brow furrowed. "So we chose IVF. We talked about this." "Yes," Evelyn whispered, tears streaming now. "But what I never told you is that the egg donor wasn't the one on the file. I changed it. I insisted on a different donor, someone with strong health records, someone the clinic suggested. She was black." Daniel froze. His gaze flicked toward Yanelle, who sat stiff, her breath caught. Evelyn's voice cracked. "That's why Olivia's skin is a shade darker than mine. That's why strangers sometimes look at her, then at me, with questions in their eyes. And that's why, when I saw her clinging to Yanelle, something inside me snapped. It felt like the truth I'd buried was clawing to the surface." Daniel's pulse thundered. He turned slowly toward Yanelle. "And you, did you know?" Yanelle shook her head quickly, her eyes wide. "No, sir. I swear. I didn't know anything. I just felt her need. Babies don't care about bloodlines, they care about comfort." But Daniel had seen it. The way Olivia melted in Yanelle's arms, the way her tiny fingers clutched the fabric of her blouse as if she belonged there. The connection had always been deeper than routine. It was instinctive. Evelyn's sobs broke the silence. "I was ashamed, Daniel. Ashamed that I couldn't be enough. Ashamed of the looks, the whispers. So when I saw her with Yanelle, it was like the truth was mocking me. And I lashed out." Daniel's chest ached. He had built empires on logic, on facts, on clarity. Yet here, in his own home, emotions and secrets had nearly destroyed them. He stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Do you realize what you've done, Evelyn? You let your fear and prejudice poison everything. You struck a woman who's done nothing but love our child. And you hid the truth from me, your husband." Her shoulders shook as she whispered, "I thought if you knew, you'd see me as a failure." Daniel's gaze softened for the first time. The only failure here was hiding it. Olivia is our daughter. Ours. And love, not blood, makes that real. He turned toward Yanelle, whose hands trembled in her lap. "You deserved none of this. You've carried more grace than anyone under this roof. And because of you, my daughter feels safe. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Yanelle's eyes brimmed with tears, but she shook her head. "I don't need repayment, sir. I only need to know Olivia will grow up in a home where she's loved for who she is, not hidden, not shamed." Daniel's voice steadied. "Then that's what she'll have." Evelyn buried her face in her hands, the weight of her secrets finally crushing her pride. Daniel stood tall, Olivia's faint cries echoing from the nursery upstairs. He felt the ground shift beneath them all, but for the first time, it was shifting toward truth. And truth, however painful, was the only foundation on which they could rebuild. The truth, once spoken, could not be buried again. It echoed through the Barrington estate, heavier than marble and older than pride. Evelyn remained in her room for days, her once flawless facade stripped away. Daniel gave her space, knowing wounds of shame cut deeper than anger. Meanwhile, the house moved with a new rhythm. Olivia's cries no longer pierced the halls for hours. When they came, Yanelle responded with her quiet lullabies, and the baby stilled, her tiny fists unclenching in peace. Daniel often stood in the doorway, watching, a man who had conquered industries, now humbled by the sight of a maid cradling his daughter with more wisdom than any fortune could buy. And slowly, Evelyn emerged. One evening, she entered the nursery to find Yanelle rocking Olivia. The sight once triggered fury in her veins. Now it only brought tears. Her voice shook. "She loves you." Yanelle looked up, startled. I. No, Evelyn whispered, stepping closer. I was wrong. I let my fear make me cruel. I saw your hands holding what I thought should only be mine, and I struck at the wrong person. I can't erase it, but I can tell you, thank you, for loving her when I couldn't. Yanelle's throat tightened. She rose, gently placing Olivia into her mother's arms. For a moment, Evelyn stiffened. Then the baby gurgled, smiling up at her, and Evelyn's heart cracked open. Tears spilled freely as she pressed her cheek to her daughter's soft hair. Yanelle whispered, "She doesn't need perfection. She only needs you." Weeks later, Daniel hosted a small gathering in the garden. Not the glittering galas the Barringtons were known for, but an intimate dinner under string lights, with close friends and staff seated as equals. At the center of the long wooden table sat Olivia in her high chair, giggling as Yanelle tickled her toes. When glasses were raised, Daniel spoke. His voice carried the calm authority that once commanded boardrooms, now reshaped by humility. Tonight isn't about wealth or status. It's about truth. This family nearly broke because of fear and secrets, but it was saved by love, unexpected, undeserved, and stronger than pride. Yanelle, you came to us as a housekeeper, but you became more. You reminded us that family is not written by blood alone, but by courage, by sacrifice, by choosing each other. Applause rose around the table, gentle but heartfelt. Evelyn dabbed her eyes, nodding silently. Later that night, Daniel wandered into the nursery. On the nightstand beside Olivia's crib sat a new object, a framed picture. Inside was a sunflower Yanelle had pressed between glass, its golden petals bright against the pale background. Beneath it, a handwritten note in her careful script, always toward the light. Daniel smiled faintly. The sunflower, resilient and unashamed, would forever turn its face toward the sun, even after storms. It was a symbol not just for Olivia, but for all of them. He looked down at his daughter, who stirred in her sleep, tiny fingers curled into a fist of determination. For the first time, he felt sure her future would not be defined by whispers of scandal or prejudice, but by the strength of those who loved her enough to face the truth. He whispered into the quiet room, "You'll always have the light, my little one, and we'll make sure of it." Wealth without truth is hollow, and pride without love is poison. Families are not built on appearances, but on the courage to confess, the humility to forgive, and the compassion to protect the vulnerable. Like the sunflower, love will always find the light, no matter how dark the storm.